Yes, now we have it.
All right, all right. So let me just go through these uh, some of the points. So as I described, that Islamic worldview is very important to understand when we approach Islamic teachings related to economic principles. So Islamic worldview says that human beings have been created for a purpose, and they have to be responsible for their actions with regards to ethical compliance with the principles that have been given to people by the Creator. So, according to the Islamic teachings, this worldly life is a trial for humans in which they are being tested for their thankfulness and obedience to Allah. Now, how do they obey Allah and how they can be thankful to Allah? That would be definitely described by the Creator through the knowledge that is given in the divine sources of knowledge, like for instance Quran, like for instance the ways and acts of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was sent as the last messenger. So, in the test nature of life, Allah has given unequal endowments to humans so that they employ each other. So, the endowment inequality that we see in the world, that there are some people who are very rich, there are a lot of people who are very poor. Now, that has happened not because of merit necessarily. It has happened because of merit to an extent, but also because people are tested as to how they behave when they are given abundant resources, how do they behave when they are um, asked to face certain hardships. So the divine will on endowment inequality is also a means to test people's thankfulness and patience. Now, if we look at some of the teachings related to uh, conducting business activities or seeking endowments or seeking economic sustenance in the economy, we come across certain don'ts that have been prescribed by the religion of Islam that have to be avoided. Like, for instance, interest is prohibited, riba is prohibited. So, interest based banking or investments or the ways of financing which involves interest are not permissible as per Islamic teachings. Likewise, bribery or fraud or gambling, theft, business of intoxicants, prostitution. These are some of the examples of the don'ts that have to be followed while conducting business. Now, if we look at the implication of these teachings when applied to economy, so basically there would not be any ways to exploit other human beings through interest, through gambling, through bribery, through fraud. All of these things have been prohibited by Islamic sources of knowledge. And if we look at some of the other teachings, like for instance, Islam allows trade, but it also cautions against unfairness, exploitation, deceit. It asks people to be having fairness in trade dealings. It asks people to fulfill their contracts, which is very important in the field of finance, because when we talk about finance, finance involves transactions in which some of the commitments have to be fulfilled in future. So when we make investments, we get return in future. When we get financing from a financial institution, we repay the financing that we have got later on. So in financial exchanges, it is important that we fulfill our contracts so that these transactions are completed smoothly and there is trust of people in conducting financial transactions. Likewise, Islam says that accumulation for the purpose of hoarding should be avoided. So if that is achieved, what will happen to market prices? Market prices would not be artificially inflated because we have seen that a lot of time when the prices increase, the reason is hoarding. So Islam disallows playing with market forces. It allows that there should not be any barriers to entry, there should not be any barriers to economic exchange, and people should be freely conducting their business, and there should not be any way or intent to exploit the other counterparties in the economic transactions. Likewise, just taking oaths for deceiving. So Islam puts huge emphasis on honesty, on truthfulness, on transparency in economic exchange. And if these things are avoided, this is going to build trust in the economic system. This is going to protect the property rights, intellectual rights, So if that happens, then the economic activities are going to further be boosted, and economic growth can happen. Likewise, we come across these teachings which say that we should document the terms of the agreement to avoid disputes, to avoid moral hazard, to avoid lack of transparency. And when we conduct credit transaction and debts, it is important that we fulfill our obligations, because no financial system can work if the financial contracts are not complied with. Because whenever we have a financial transaction, there would be some commitment by some counterparty that is going to be taking place in the future. So if we don't have trust in the system, if we don't have people fulfilling their contracts, no financial system can work. So these are some of the, you can say, broad principles which govern the conduct of business. So no matter whether we are in A industry or B industry, in finance industry or a non-financial industry, it does not matter. The important thing is that when we are conducting our business, we have to abide by the ethical principles that have been given by Islam. Now, some people may ask or think that what is different, even if we come across other doctrines, or if we come across other cultures, these things are also told to us. Now, the important thing is that there has to be morality which is objective, which is not subjective, which is not just time bound, which is not just bound by some cultures or by thinking of some people in a particular era. There should be objective morality, and there should be objective incentives for ethical conduct. So if we believe in no life after this life, then we see a lot of poor people who remain deprived throughout their lives. They live unjust life, they die unjustly, and there is no recourse to them. But Islam says that there is a possibility that we might not get absolute justice in this life, but in the afterlife there would be absolute justice for every act that we perform, and no matter
Okay.
who is performing that act. So that
So that's
provides.
absolutely right. I agree with you. It is about objective morality, and honestly, I know you have laid an amazing groundwork for us about the general principles and laws. And I know that it's like darya ko kuze mein band karna, as they say in Urdu. But I know it's a huge set of principles and laws, and I really appreciate how you have laid the groundwork